I did it right this service. I didn't do it right last service. It was a bit of it was like this. It's the worst fight ever. All right, everyone, well, welcome out to Trailhead Church. We are so pumped and excited for you to be here today. For those of you who don't know me, I am Pastor Adam. I'm the teaching pastor here at Trailhead Church. Wow. But I am so excited to be here today. My wife made me go to the barber yesterday so I'd look good. I went to get my boy Miguel. That's right. I only let him touch the beard. So only he gets to touch it. So I'm ready to be here with you today. Pastor Josh is out west. He's out in Death Valley. He's out in a special place, like where he loves going out west. He's there with his family, just soaking up all in, getting some good rest, some good rejuvenation, and he will be back next week. And next week's going to be a great week. This is a good week too, but next week's going to be a great week because we're going to be announcing some things that you want to be here for sure. And this is my first time preaching in the marriage series. So I am excited. This is Fighting Fair. It's our marriage series. Just to let everyone know, this is a PG-13 message. I'm not going to go full-blown R on you, don't worry. But this is a PG-13 message. So I'm just letting you know in advance. It's not going to be like descriptive or anything, but just so you know, I'm not going RNC-17 on you, so don't worry. I wouldn't want to do that anyway. But I am excited to be here because I've been married now for 7 years. That doesn't make me an expert on it or anything, but I have gained some insight and some wisdom. And I know some of you in this room, you're single or you're dating or you're not even close to being there yet. And I remember when we first started the church, we were doing a marriage series, and I wasn't even in that realm by that point, all right? For like the first half of the church's existence, I was single. So I know what it's like to be in a room where they're talking about marriage, and you're not even there, like you're not even in the ballpark. But I want to encourage you, and I want to tell you that soak it in. Because I am so thankful to be part of a church that does series like this, because I was able to go into my marriage prepared. I was able to have realistic expectations. It wasn't all just what I saw on TV and in movies. It was real. So if you're single in this room, don't roll your eyes. Oh, they're doing this again. I thought we'd be over by now. Oh, I remember when we first started the church, the big thing that churches were doing, we didn't do this, but there were big thing churches were doing, because when you start a church, you do see what other churches are doing just to see, will this work in our area? Will this work for our people? It was sex challenges, okay? And it would be something like, go a whole week with your spouse of every day and you're going to have sex. And if I can't imagine being single and in that, church that following Sunday. Like that would just be so awkward. You're just sort of like, y'all nasty, like. But soak it in, because we are giving you some good information that you want to apply to your future relationships, not just your marriages, but also your dating relationships. Who you're looking for. I get it. I've been there. I've been like, I don't have to go to this series, right? Because I'm not married. No, listen, I save myself so much time, heartache, frustration by soaking in the wisdom of Pastor Josh and Pastor Anna and how to realistically approach relationships. And it caused me to actually identify my spouse early on. I remember my first date with my wife, and I didn't tell her this because this would freak her out. I knew I was going to marry her. It wasn't like like a burning bush appeared at Rick's Pizza telling me, you will marry Damaris. But I knew I want to marry this woman. I've been on dates before. I had a girlfriend in college. Never had I felt that before. Like I could marry this girl. And part of that was because I want to hang out with her even if we weren't dating. And so today it's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about friendship in the marriage. It's a topic that doesn't often get talked about a lot when you think of like self-help books or TV specials. A lot of times the focus is put on, bringing intimacy back in your relationship, having date nights, having romance, and that's important, and that's good, and that's important to the marriage, but really friendship is kind of that core. But that's that core value you need to have in your marriage, in your relationships, to really make it last. Because, you may be having a lack of intimacy, but that could just be the symptom, not the disease. Yeah, you could be having a lack of date nights, and sometimes I get it. You could be having a great marriage, and sometimes you have those dry spells that we'll call them because kids got to go to school, work's crazy, and you're just not utilizing your Google Calendar, to put in those code words of like it's tonight. That's you're not utilizing. I get that, but sometimes if you're just going through a dry spell because you don't even really want to connect, it may be because of a lack of friendship going on in your marriage. And a lot of times we don't talk about friendship because friend is like a curse word when you're talking about relationships. I mean, how many of you, let's be honest, and I think a lot of us have been there, think like back to high school, think to, shoot, even now. I mean, it never ends. What's the worst thing somebody you like can call you when you're really into them? Friends, there it is, the friend zone. You have entered the friend zone. There is no getting out. When somebody says that to you, of like, oh, you're such a good friend, it's saying that I don't want to kiss. I mean, that's what that is. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to be brutal with you, because I have learned from my high school, I spent most of my high school days in the friend zone. And I'm going to tell some of you younger, some of you older, if you're in the friend zone, move on. They're not into you. And I know TV, and they're like, they'll come around because I'm such a good person, and you are, and you deserve to be with somebody that identifies that. So move on. If they identify that, great, they'll come back around. But move on, all right? Don't let, I'm getting way off topic. High school is just flashing back before my eyes. Sure, I'll carry your book bag, why not? It's a dangerous place, and you should get out of it. So I don't know where that came from. First service did not experience that. But friendship in marriage is important. It's an important factor that the person you want to spend the rest of your life with is someone you want to at least be around, someone you want to be friends with. And so I want us to go to the Bible, which is a good place to go to in church, but I want to go to the Bible and read a story that often gets overlooked. It comes from the book of Esther, and it has nothing to do with Esther. So if you got your Bible, or if you just want to go to trailhead.info, or if you have a Bible app, go to Esther chapter 1, and we're going to look at King Xerxes, all right? And some translations make King Ahasuerus. That's the Hebrew term for Xerxes. And there was a movie that came out, and there's some books and things and TV specials that depict the book of Esther incorrectly. All right, so to know what I'm talking about, you have to know who King Xerxes was. This is the guy that married Esther. Xerxes is often described, he's depicted as this handsome, studly, super nice guy. He's sweet. Him and Esther were doing Bible studies and going on the K-Love cruise for their honeymoon. And just this super sweet guy you'll want to bring home to mom. Xerxes was not that. Now, I'm not advocating you go and watch this movie. I've only seen it once. It was like the TV edited version, but 300. Okay, those of you who have seen 300, you know the main bad guy, the guy with all the piercings? That's the same guy. That's Esther's husband. And that movie had it closer to history than these other movies have it. Xerxes was power hungry. He claimed to be a god. He was ruthless. He was not a good guy. And so I just want to put that into context as we get into the story. So we're going to start at verse 3, okay? Xerxes, again, was not a great guy. He was power hungry. He was not a sweet, sensitive man who just wanted somebody to hold at night. That wasn't him. He wanted power. So starting at verse 3, we read that in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. He invited all the military officers of Persia and Media, as well as the princes and nobles of the provinces. The celebration lasted 180 days, a tremendous display of his opulent wealth of his empire and the pomp and splendor of his majesty. All right, so now what we're seeing here is an ancient version of an Instagram post, all right? What happens whenever you get something really nice and you want to show it off? You get a new watch, new shoes, new video game system, new car. What are you going to do? You're going to take a picture and post about it. You're going to tell the whole world what you just acquired. And you're going to wait and see how many likes you get and how many people comment and how many people are jealous of that amazing thing you just got. Well, they didn't have that back then. So what he did was threw a massive party so people can marvel at his work, marvel at what he's done, marvel at what he's acquired, marvel at my wealth. Because this wealth came through conquering. This wealth came through power. I am the great ruler, Xerxes. Everyone, look at me. This wasn't a thank you party for his supporters. This was a showing off his wealth, his power. Okay, and to go into verse 9, we see that when it was all over, the king gave a banquet for all the people, from the greatest to the least, who were in the fortress of Susa. It lasted the 7 days and was held in the courtyard of the palace garden. The courtyard was beautifully decorated with white cotton curtains and blue hangings, which were fastened with white linen cords and purple ribbons, the silver rings embedded in marble pillars. Gold and silver couches stood on the mosaic pavement of the porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Drinks were served in gold goblets of many designs, and there was an abundance of royal wine reflecting the king's generosity. By edict of the king, no limits were placed on the drinking, for the king had instructed all his palace officials to serve each man as much as he wanted. And at the same time, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. So we see at this party, things are getting crazy, all right? Things are getting just out of control. And Xerxes is just saying, you know what, the wine, let it be unlimited. Let everyone see how generous the ruler is. I can provide this for you. I can provide this power, this wealth. Look at me. And everyone is just getting wasted out of their minds. They're getting drunk. They are partying it up. It's like a Jay-Z video going on there. People are going nuts. I don't know what the current rap scene looks like now, so I have to go back to like early 2000s, so I'm sorry. I don't know what the kids do now, so I don't. It's getting totes lit up in here, fam. I don't know. I'm not allowed to be in youth, and that's why, because I say things like that. So anyway. But things are getting a little out of control. And so Queen Vashti, his wife, is having another banquet for the women. And then we see in verse 10, it says, on the 7th day of the feast, when King Xerxes was in high spirits because of the wine, he told the 7 eunuchs who attended him, Behuman, Bista, Harbona, Bigtha, Abitha, Zethar, and Carcass, which, by the way, it's bad enough being a eunuch. You gotta be a eunuch named Carcass. Somebody does not want you dating. Like, that's... Poor guy. To bring Queen Vashti to him with the royal crown on her head. He wanted the nobles and all the other men to gaze on her beauty, for she was a very beautiful woman. But when they conveyed the king's order to Queen Vashti, she refused to come. This made the king furious, and he burned with anger. And so we see here that Xerxes is, when it says high in spirits, means he was drunk. He was drunk, his buddies were drunk, he was partying up, and he says, you know what? You know what you guys got to see? I got a super hot wife. Bring her out, put on the crown, let her come around, show her off for all my buddies so you can see, hey, not only do I get the money, not only do I get the wine, but I got the most beautiful woman in this empire. Bring her up. Ladies, if I told, I don't want to say you, but if I told my wife that, honey, baby, you're hot, stand up, turn around, baby. I want to tell you, see what I got right here? Woo! I don't know, how would you handle that? Probably not very well. And I remember, and I didn't say this in the beginning, I did the last time, but I remember the earliest advice I remember ever getting about marriage was from my dad. And he said, son, if you're going to get married, just make sure you're the ugly one. And that's what I did. So, and that may just be what Xerxes did. But Xerxes is wanting her to come out, and this isn't like a sweet, noble gesture of affection. This is, let me parade you in front of my drunk bros so they can marvel at how awesome I am and how hot you are while they oogle at you and marvel at just how amazing I am. That's not love. That's not affection. And let's keep in mind, Xerxes had a harem of women. Okay, harem of women means he's not a one-woman guy. All right? He had these other women, even though she was the queen. And so she says, no. Ladies, would you say no? If you're like your life wasn't like on the line or anything, but would you say no? Of course. Because that's not love, that's not affection, that's disgusting. So Vashti, as much as she likes to be portrayed as this hateful nag, and he is portrayed as this sensitive soul who just wants to love on his wife, she was right. She was right to say, no, I'm not coming out there. That's disgusting. I'm not a badge of honor. I am your spouse. I am your wife. And we know the story. Xerxes gets angry. He gets furious. He divorces her, sends this, massive edict throughout all the land saying that she is no longer queen. And then he gets sad and depressed and lonely and kicks off Persian Bachelor, where he finds Esther in this weird contest. That's where it came from. I don't know if you know, that's where the Bachelor came from the book of Esther. But you can tell there's a lack of friendship in this relationship. There's no friendship. There's no real relationship. And a lot of times we don't identify friend with spouse, but your spouse needs to be your best friend. And not just in terms of lip service, not just in terms of a Facebook post on their birthday. They need to really be your friend. So what does the Bible say about friendship? Let's look at what it says. Well, first off, the Bible says that friends are accountable to each other. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 through 10. 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Friends are accountable to each other. So are you accountable when it comes to your spouse? Now, accountability does not mean condemnation. It does not mean domination. It does not mean guilt, but it means you are accountable to each other. It means that you are looking out for each other in terms of your spiritual well-being, your physical well-being, your emotional well-being. You are looking out for each other, and that takes being honest. And this is where it does get a little hard. It does get a little difficult. And you have to admit that, hey, maybe you're not 100% in all areas of your life. Let's look at finances. One of the biggest reasons for divorce can be rooted to finances for a lot of people. And sometimes it's because maybe you're not being open and honest when it comes to it, because that does cause a strain, it does cause a stress. And I had somebody ask me, I remember not too long after we got married, somebody asked me, and they were dating someone, and we were at some get-together for one of Damaris's friends, and they asked me, said, hey, let me ask you a question, because I think he was getting himself in that marriage mindset and thinking about proposing and all that. So when you got married, do you still have the same bank accounts you had before? Do you still have separate bank accounts? I was like, no. Gosh, no. And he's like, why? And he's like, well, why? I said, because I don't want my wife to ever have to doubt or suspect that I'm doing something behind her back. And listen, I'm not going to try to force some legalism down your throat. Some of you may have separate bank accounts or whatever, and that's fine. I know some of you have Christmas bank accounts or things like that, so that way, you're not spoiling surprises and everything. But let me tell you this, if your spouse does not have your login information, there's a problem. If you are trying to hide where the money's going, that's going to cause some issue. That's going to cause some friction. Because you have to be accountable to each other. Because when you get married, it's no longer 2, but 1. And that means the same when it comes to your finances. The same guy asked me, he said, okay, let me ask you this. If Damaris got a big raise, and she's now making more money than you, would you be okay with that? Heck yeah! Because let me answer, go back to your first question, it's the same bank account. She makes more money, I make more money, all right? I get a part of that too, because we don't look at it as in like, well, okay, you make this amount, so you get to set this much percentage of the say of the money, and you get this much percentage, and I get more say. No, it's all one big funneling tube, and it just all comes in this beautiful account, and it's money. We don't do that. Well, I'll get to that later. She's the frugal one, and she keeps me in check. But all that's not, how it should work. You need to be accountable and open and honest when it comes to your finances, when it comes to maybe something you're struggling with, men and even women. Let's talk about pornography. Are you being open and honest with your struggles? Are you being open and honest with them at, hey, this is an area that I find difficult? And they are finding that women are increasing in that number every year. I mean, there are programs, there are ministries that have free programs for you to put on your computer that whenever you go to a site that may be questionable, it will send an email to your accountability partner or your spouse saying, hey, so-and-so visited this site. And it's not a tattletale thing. It's a, hey, let's talk. I saw that you went here. Let's talk about this. Let's see how we can get you out of this funk. Let's work at this together. Because when you hide things and you bottle them up and you keep them in, eventually that's going to explode. And eventually it's going to have an effect on you. So like as the Bible says, when it comes to helping each other out with as your friends, shouldn't your spouse be that too? Do you really want to be hiding things? Because that's going to lead down a really, really dark and destructive path. Next, friends are loyal. Your friends are loyal. Your real friends are loyal. Proverbs 17:17 says this, a friend is always loyal, and a brother is born to keep in time of need. Friends are loyal. Okay, now it doesn't mean you blindly follow each other, that if there's a circumstance of abuse or something like that, you don't just blindly say it's okay. That's not what that means. But being loyal to someone means you stick by them. Even during the tough times, the hard times, when the economy is great, when the economy is bad, whatever, you are staying loyal to your spouse. My wife, I wrote this message actually 2 years ago. I was supposed to preach. Again, I was excited. I was so pumped to preach in a marriage series. And that Saturday before the Sunday I was supposed to preach, I get a phone call that my father was being moved to the ICU. And those of you who've been going to the church for a while, you know that not too long after that my father passed away. He was 61, I believe, 61, 62. And doctors think, we don't really know for sure what happened, but doctors think he probably had an undetectable malignancy in his liver of some sort, and that caused a chain reaction. But any of you who've ever gone through something like that, you've lost a loved one, you've dealt with that. Listen, if you are in this room and you are grieving, read the book Life After Death by Tony Cook. It will really change your perspective on some things, and it'll also remind you that you're normal. Because grief is weird. Any of you who've gone through grieving, you know it's weird. Because I don't even say like one day. It's like 1 hour you could be perfectly fine skipping down the road. 1 hour you could be crying. 1 hour you could be angry. You could be all these different things. And to be quite frankly, the past 2 years have been me being off and on, like on and off a turd. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I'm sure there's a better psychological term, but that's just how I'll describe myself. But my wife knew that. And my wife was grieving with me. And I can't imagine getting through those 2 years, obviously without, God, and obviously my friends here, but without my wife. Because I could trust her. I could trust her to be open and just say, honey, I just can't deal with this right now. Or, honey, I just need to go blow off some steam. Or this is what I'm feeling, or this is what I'm going through. If it wasn't for her, it would have been much more difficult. Because even when I was in my darkest, she was still loyal to me. Even when the circumstance got bleak, she easily could have been like, you know what, I'm going to go get my nails done. I'm going to go hang out with my friends and just let you be here. No, she was here. She was loyal. And that's how a real friend, as Proverbs says, a friend is always loyal. So you always need to be loyal to your spouse, no matter the circumstance. Again, I know it doesn't necessarily apply to abuse and things like that. That's different. I'm talking about like when the times are good, when the times are bad, you are always standing by side together. To be accountable to each other, to encourage each other, to be there for each other. Next, friends serve each other. Friends do. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 9 through 10 says this, that each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms. All right, let me tell you something. I love, and you'll hear Pastor Katie when she comes up and dismiss, she's going to push for this. I love the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder is a class we offer for people who are new, and we talk all about the vision of Trailhead and how to get plugged in, and that stuff's awesome. It is, but my favorite part is week 3, because in week 3 we give you assessments, which is a fancy, non-threatening way to say test. We give you that. And they're personality assessments. They're for you, and a spiritual gifts assessment. And some of you have already taken these, and they're to help you identify how uniquely and fearfully and wonderfully made you are. How your personality is that way, and the things you care about are that way for a reason. And how we as a church, when we use that all together, it creates a beautiful picture. Because not all of us are called to preach, not all of us are called to greet, not all of us are called to be ushers, not all of us are called to outreach or to prayer. I mean, obviously, in some capacity, yes, but some people, you have passions for things for a reason. And the same thing goes with marriage. Now, obviously, you want to make sure you're compatible with the person you're about to marry. But anyone who's been married for more than 15 minutes knows that as soon as you are married in that house, there's going to be some differences. There's going to be some things that may be a little different, that maybe the two of you, first off, need to identify, hey, that's the way I am. How can we work this to improve our situation? Just quick poll. Those of you who are married, how many of you would say in your relationship, you're the saver? You're looking at the savings account. We got to put that away. No, we ain't buying that. All right, how many of you are the spender? That's right. Make it rain, baby. That's what we do. My relationship, and a lot of us, there's a saver and a spender. My wife works in a bank, so I couldn't hide anything from her if I wanted to. But she works in a bank. And so she has experienced financial hardship. She's experienced people's lives be destroyed over improper financial management. So she is always thinking of ways of how much can we put into savings? How much can we put towards the journey home? How much can we put towards putting away for retirement? I'm thinking, I saw a pretty iPad, I want that. And I got it. She saved, I spent. That's not how it works. Okay, don't, whatever. But we complement each other in that, because if she had it her way, we would be living in a cardboard box with a fat bank account. If I had it my way, we'd be living in a mansion for like a week until we went bankrupt. That's how, now that's extremes, I know, but that's just how we are. We complement each other on that. And we've identified that of, hey, this is how we can make it better. That we can have, higher quality things, but at the same time not go crazy and overboard, and make sure we're saving money and preparing for the future. The same thing goes with when it comes to cleanliness. Some of you all are neat freaks. Some of you guys don't know the difference between Mr. Clean and Mr. T. But that's where you need to identify that you're all wired differently and you care about different things, and use those gifts to enhance your relationship. Clean the house for the mother gone. Give all the kids a bath. Put all the kids to bed. Go do something nice for them. Use those gifts to make your family dynamic and family picture beautiful, because that's how the church is built up. And that's how your marriage should be built up as well. All right, next, a godly friendship betters both individuals. Now, I want to preface with this. I know there are some of you in this room right now, and you are here by yourself without your spouse. And the reason you're here without your spouse is because they don't know Jesus yet. And you are praying and you are believing for them and you are fighting, with tears and on your knees for them to come in. I'm not talking about you, because we are praying and believing with you, because you would kill just to be able to have a relationship where you're both pursuing God. I get that. I'm not necessarily talking about you, but if you both are Christians and you both are believers, you should be growing together. Proverbs 27:17 says this, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. You and your spouse need to be growing closer together with God. You need to be having at-home Bible studies, prayer time. You need to be having, again, this may be going back to where some of your all strength is. My wife is a worshiper. She loves to worship. I'll be honest with you, I love worship too. I'm not going to go there. But when it comes to the modern worship scene, I feel the same way stepping into that as I do when I go to like Urban Outfitters. I have no idea how I got here. I don't understand why people are dressed this way. $10 shirt from Old Navy, and I probably overpaid for that. That's just how I am. But that's an area she's passionate about, and that's why my son loves to sing worship songs, because she sings that over her, or over him, sorry. I like Bible studies. I love to dissect scripture. I love to read things that maybe other people don't care about. I love that nerdy history stuff. That's things I like. So we can combine that together to make sure we're both growing, to make sure I'm getting that spirit-filled side of growth, because it can't be just head knowledge. It also has to be heart knowledge as well. Same thing. Use that together, sharpen each other. Everyone here heard of A.W. Tozer? A.W. Tozer. A.W. Tozer was probably one of the most brilliant Christian minds ever. His books are amazing. Read The Pursuit of God. So good, so good. He is in that Christian classics section of literature, and he's so good, and he was so talented. He was a pastor in Chicago. He wrote so many great things, but his marriage fell short. Now, A.W. Tozer, his first name was Aiden. He was, again, the pastor at a church in Chicago. His wife's name was Ada. And A.W. was so passionate about the things of God that they said he spent hours and hours and hours in his prayer closet, hours a day seeking after these things. He became non-materialistic, and he embraced the poverty mentality to where they didn't even own a car. And you're saying, well, that's not that big of a deal. Listen, you tell your wife to go walk to church in a Chicago winter and see how well that goes over. But that's what Ada had to do. And while Tozer was pursuing God in his prayer closet, he was leaving his wife basically in the dust. And Ada became depressed. She became isolated. She became, she became sort of feeling dejected, to where when Tozer passed away, she remarried a man named Leonard Odom. And she had described those few years she's married to him, as the best years of her life. And she was quoted as saying this: Aiden loved Jesus Christ, but Leonard Odom loves me. Man, I never want my wife to ever think that I don't love her. I always want her to be able to say, Adam loves Jesus Christ, and he loves me. Because, yes, the Bible does say God comes first. But when you love God and when you pursue after God, it's reflected in your marriage and how you love your spouse. It doesn't mean God here, husband and wife down here. It doesn't mean you're leaving them in the dust. And I never, ever want to make my wife feel like she is down here at the bottom of the barrel, all because I am pursuing after God. If I die and before her, and knowing my eating habits, it's not looking great. I like bacon, but yeah. If I die before her, I want to ruin all men for her. No, I want her to move on and be happy. But at the same time, I want to be kind of like, you're no Adam, I still want her to be happy. Okay, I still want her to move on, but like really hesitantly, like she thinks she saw like a burning bush, tell her it's okay, it's okay or something like that. That's what I want. That's the American dream, folks. So, but if I read what the Scripture tells me, and if you're still not convinced by what I'm telling you, if I read what the Scripture tells me, if I read what Jesus says in John 15:13, he says this: greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Now, if I go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, I'm going to switch over to Paul. And you've read this passage so many times. But it says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Now, if I take that, and I know I'm making you bounce all around, you can go trella.info or look up here. I'm bouncing you all around, but I'm trying to piece together this puzzle for you. If I read what Paul writes in Ephesians to husbands and wives, he starts with this. At chapter 5, verse 24, It says, as the church submits to Christ, so you wives should submit to your husbands in everything. I know some guys, you're like, woo, that's it. We're done. Make me a sandwich. I mean, that's where it's at. That's our family verse. We got it right over here over the fireplace. It's real nice. Wives, submit to your husbands and hush. I mean, it's real nice. But they want to ignore the next verse that says this. And when I piece all these beautiful puzzle pieces together, it says this. It says that for husbands, this means, so if your wife is to submit to you, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. So what that means is it's not domination. It's not mean your wife is there. It does not mean your wife is there to make you a sandwich and, love on you whenever you're feeling up to it. That's not what that means. It means that you are to love your spouse. You are to submit to each other, really, if you read the verse right before it, but you are to love your wife with as much passion and conviction that you would willingly lay down your life for her betterment. For her to be better, for her to experience, more of God, you would, if you had to, you would lay down your life for her. And you would show her love, just as Christ loved the church, a love that is patient and kind and not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. Jesus did not love the church and then just leave them in the dust to fend for themselves. He sent the Holy Spirit. So you pursuing after your own interests and everything, you got to bring your spouse along. They are meant to come along for the ride. It's meant to be a team effort. It's not meant to be one where one feels isolated and dejected and like their needs don't matter, to where when you finally croak, they can be happy. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And I'm not trying to diminish A.W. Tozer. I'm telling you, his books are so stinking good, and none of us are perfect. We've all fallen short of the glory of God in some way. I don't want to ruin him for some of you all, but that was an area he did not excel in. And so, when it comes to friendship and when it comes to marriage, I'm going to ask you the question, are you cultivating friendship? What the biblical definition is of friendship, can that be reflective in your marriage? Those of you, maybe you're not married. Is this what you're seeking after? Is this what you're seeking after? Are you seeking after that friendship? And I don't mean that there's some golden rule where you should be friends with somebody X amount of weeks or X amount of months before you finally ask them out on a date. It doesn't have to work that way. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. There's not some sort of legalism to it. But are you willing to be friends with your spouse and not just be lip service? Because those of you who are married, this is what you should be looking for. Friendship in your marriage. Somebody you want to spend time with. Someone you want to spend the rest of your life with that you can cultivate and grow. Because I know, listen, I've been a single guy before. All right, I know what you're thinking. I can't wait to get married. It's going to be awesome. And you know why? It's going to be awesome. I'm finally going to get to do it. I've been a single guy in his 20s. I've heard good Christian men, and they're just kind of like, I can't wait, like this. Listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. And I'm going to probably wreck some minds. You do not get married to have sex. That's how God ordained it for marriage. It is once you're married, you understand, because there's a lot of emotions involved, there's a lot of commitment involved. You do not get married just to have sex, because that's like buying an airplane to get free pretzels. All right? There is so much more. I got told please don't let that be your one quote you post on social media. Next week, Pastor Adam was gone. Where'd he go? We don't talk about him anymore. So, it's something deeper than just that. It's something deeper. It's something more. It's that you want to commit to, that you want to grow each other. And some of you right now, you may be struggling in your marriage, and you're looking at the symptoms. You're saying, like, well, if we just had more sex, if we just made more money, if we just had more time. Listen, those are symptoms, not the disease. Because some of you are saying, if we improved our sex life, then we would have improved our marriage life. No, if you improve your marriage life, then you improve your sex life. It goes the other way around. There was a sociologist who did this study years ago, and her findings were this, that the quality of the passion, of the romance, of the intimacy were 70% based on the quality of the friendship found in the marriage. Don't look at the symptoms, look at the cure. Look at the disease, what's causing that. Because you may be butting heads right now, off and on, and you're trying to find all these things that's wrong with them, and that may be why you're here today. It may be why you're here for a marriage series. They're one of the biggest, I don't want to say people drawers, but people come out for marriage series, and sometimes it's because finally the preacher will fix them. Finally, they're going to hear it, and you're nudge, nudge. You hear that? You hear that? You hear that? That's not friendship. That's not iron sharpening iron. You should be growing each other. You should want to spend time with your spouse. And listen, I'm not saying my wife's and my marriage is perfect. We still have arguments. I'm right all the time. But I always know, and she always knows, we can count on each other. We're loyal to each other. And we want what's best for each other. Do we do it perfect all the time? No, heck no. I remember one time we were talking with a couple in the church. This was years ago back at our old location. And they were talking to us, and they were new to the church. And you're like, yeah, we're just really trying to grow. And we want to be like you guys, but we still fight sometimes. And we had like a fight the night before. So it was just kind of like, dude, don't worry, you're good. But at the end of the day, that's who I want to spend time with. That's who I want to spend my life with. And it's not because of money, or it's not because of the symptoms, or because of intimacy. It's because that's my friend. That's my best friend. And it's not just lip service. It's not just a social media post. And so some of you right now, maybe you're struggling in your marriage. That may be where you need to look at, is how's your friendship? How's the friendship in the marriage? And what are you doing to cultivate that? What are you doing to grow that? Because that's where you'll really see your marriage take off. And we have some great things coming up, and I'm not going to spill the beans too much. I know Pastor Josh wants to, but he's going to make an announcement next week of something we're starting up. And it's a great program. And if you're in here and you say, that's me, I'm struggling with my marriage, listen, you want to get a part of what we're going to be starting, or even if you're just new to marriage, or you just really want to grow your bond, listen, come out next week. You're going to hear about something awesome coming up. I'm glad you came this week, but again, come out next week, because it's going to be really, I got to sit in on the training for it. It's so stinking good. Really, really is. But I'm telling you guys, focus on that friendship. Focus on building it. Is it good now? Great, make it better. Is it poor now? Great, make it better. Focus on that. Connect with your spouse. Don't let it just be about the symptoms, but let it be about what really matters. And the rest of that will figure itself out. Let's pray.